Mood. This is the key concept to remember as we embark on creating our own electric experiences. What we are after is discovering the image that we capture amongst the thousands that contain the punctum that will later develop into the problem that we seek to address. Mood is that which cannot be easily defined. We only know it when we see it. Western thought, through the application of scientific modes of inquiry, has sought to exile mood from critique. However, as Ulmer points out, through the FRE consultancy, mood must be included in critique. We cannot separate ourselves from it. In fact, it governs the way we perceive and interact with the world that is all around us. Therefore, as agents of the EMR agency, our task is not to explicitly define or analyze our problem, whatever that may turn out to be, but rather to discover its mood. The term discover here is important. We are not seeking to capture a mood. Capturing reflects our desire to maintain control. We need to discover it. That is to say, allow it to emerge on its own. The mood is always already there inside of us. It exists even when we don't recognize it. It takes the moment of epiphany, the recognition and correlation of the four elements of the pop cycle constituted in the image that reaches out and punctures us. The mood already happened. Indeed, it is the mood that is at the root of the problem. Quote, the goal of choreography as an electric practice is to learn how to support in a digital network, how to enable, enhance, and extend as a procedure of reason, the flash of spirit, end quote. In other words, choreography is seeking to represent the indefinable in a way that the uncanny moments of insight that trigger the mood of the issue. The epiphany is characterized by the emergence of the repeating signifier in the images we gather. For Ulmer and the FRE, this was the mattress. The image of the mattress came to represent the issue across the pop cycle, from the literal, moral, and anagogical perspectives. We need to be looking for these signifiers as they span across our own pop cycles. As Ulmer describes with relation to Ravel's story, quote, this entanglement of threads or narratives produced the experience of a dense moment. This reminds me of Geertz's notion of thick description and ethnography. But the dense moment doesn't emerge from piles of data. It emerges from the piles of personal experience that allow us to connect with the problem. Ulmer differentiates the role of the EMR agency consultancy from the conventional consultancy from the perspective of the object. In the electric consultancy, the object is not categorized by means of concepts, but rather through relations. As he puts it, as pure difference without properties or attributes. The EMR agency seeks to represent the experience of the sublime and expose it for inspection. Our projects need to find a correlation or relationship between the problem that always already exists within us to external catastrophes that emerge from engaging with the electric apparatus and discovering our attunement. The attunement can be described as a kind of déjà vu. Once again, the uncanny feeling of the familiar, yet still unfamiliar. Our spaces of investigation, the objects of our project, don't overtly express something that we've already felt, but instead, they bring to light the relationship between the subject, us, and the object. Agamben introduced his notion of whatever with regard to, quote, the condition in which things become signs of themselves. For us, the whatever is that undefinable thing that has the quality of producing the obtuse third meaning without falling back on traditional modes of thinking that require conceptualization. Ulmer tells us that one purpose of the Miotra, and by extension our projects, is to, quote, map the defaults determining the propensity of the zone in order to discover alternate routes. In other words, we need to find a way to take the road less taken. By doing so, we can shed light on the problems inherent in the established routes that prevent us from reaching our destination. Ulmer invokes the spirit of the situationist as locating, quote, the line of flight moving from literacy to electracy. The situationist advocated an alternative experience of life that focused on the fulfillment of our desires. Electracy follows in this tradition by abandoning traditional modes of thought and beginning with the individual as a basis for exploring problems in the civic arena. The categorical image, as expressed through the EMR agency, can be seen as the stripping away of the conceptual as well as the narrative framing to allow access to the mood of the image as such. In other words, instead of asking ourselves, what is the image, we would be better served by asking, how is the image? The frontier myth is referred to frequently in Part 3 of Miami Virtue. Ulmer wants us to modify and revise this myth and replace it with a new possibility. This new possibility takes the form of jazz as an outcrop from the blues. I'm thinking about the new consultancy. Jazz is an apt metaphor. Its lack of formal structure and reliance on improvisation is precisely what we are after. The Emer Agency, according to Ulmer, wants to create a consulting practice based on Bluetopia. Quote, blues is not feeling bad, but what you do about bad feelings. In the same way as our projects take shape, it is not simply about feeling whatever mood emerges from our images. It is about what we do with those feelings. It is about invention. An argument put forth by Jones and Baraka asserts that blues is not so much music as it is a state of mind. This reminds me of an epigraph I used in my master's thesis about punk rock. It is a quote by Mike Watt of the iconic punk band The Minutemen. In the quote, Mike Watt states, "Punk is not really a style of music, it was more like a state of mind." Therefore, the Emer Agency consultancy is a kind of methodology, but even more so it needs to be a state of mind for us. We return again to mood, whether it be the blues, jazz, punk rock, or electricity. All of these things are subversive in nature. The mood is already there, it must be, to create the space in which the new practice can emerge. Our project then can be looked at as a kind of jam session. We are setting down a strange path to an unknown destination, and just like jam session musicians, much of what we will do will be inspired by what we have just done before. We will feed off our own performance and let the tune go where it wants to go, not where we want it to go. In order to become an e-gent in the Emer Agency, perhaps our most difficult task is letting go. We have been trained for years to conduct our research in particular and often constraining ways. We need to break free of those chains and unlearn more than a few things. We need to relinquish control and embrace conductive thinking. Let chance dictate our moves and take us wherever it may.